everyone, and welcome to the Aryan online learning classes of English. I'm Ms. Anita Rawat. Today in this video, I'll be discussing with you all the fourth poem from your textbook Flamingo, A Thing of Beauty. The poet is John Keats. John Keats is a British romantic poet. Children, I would like to tell you briefly about romantic poetry. Romantic poetry is the poetry of sentiments, emotions, and imagination. The poets of this era had love and admiration towards nature. Children, in your previous classes, you have read other poets of this era like William Wordsworth and P.B. Shelley. John Keats also belongs to this age. Now, let me tell you briefly about the poem. The poem, A Thing of Beauty, is an excerpt from John Keats' poem, Endymion, in which a young shepherd and poet had a vision of Cynthia, the moon goddess. He was so mesmerized by her beauty that he wandered in the forest to seek her out. So, this is a small extract from Endymion. Now, let me tell you about the theme of the poem. But before that, let me ask you a question. Are beautiful things worth treasuring? Naturally, children, the answer is yes. But why do we treasure the beautiful things? Because these things give us eternal joy and happiness. Whenever we think about beautiful things, we forget our sufferings and we start loving life. These beautiful things wipe out all sadness from our lives caused by lack of good values. The beautiful things around us are creation of God, and these things always fill our minds with joy, happiness, and pleasure. And this is the theme of the poem. Now let's have a quick look on the vocabulary. There is a word B-O-W-E-R, bower. It means a shady place under trees. Wreath means a circle of flowers and leaves. Morrow means the following day or any other day. Gloomy means sad. Grandeur means splendor. Splendor means something very grand, something very magnificent. So children, after this brief introduction of the poem, let me begin the poem. Look at the first few lines. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness. In these lines, the poet defines a thing of beauty. See, in the very first line, the poet is saying, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Means, a thing of beauty is a source of permanent joy. A thing of beauty provides eternal and everlasting joy to us. It leaves an indelible impression on our minds, and it provides us pleasure whenever we think about it. Now, see the next line, its loveliness increases. It means the charm of beautiful things keeps on increasing many folds with the passage of time. And when the poet says it will never pass into nothingness, he means that the charm of beautiful things never fades away. Its beauty never diminishes. Its charm never decreases. And the joy it provides is everlasting. I hope you have got these lines. Now let's move forward. See the next few lines. But will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Here the poet wants to say that a thing of beauty stores for us many treasures, like a relaxing shadowy place. That he says bower. Then we get a sound sleep with sweet dreams and good health and also peace of mind. Quiet breathing means some blissful moments of peace we get out of these beautiful things. So we are getting all these blessings from beautiful things around us that we find in nature. I hope you understood these lines. Now let me move forward to the next stanza. Here we'll see the first two lines first. Therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Try to understand these lines, children. In the previous stanza, the poet spoke about all the blessings showered on us by beautiful things. Here he says that because of these blessings, we always try to connect with nature. Look at this line. Are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth? Means he's saying that every day we find one or the other way to be in touch with nature. I would like to explain this with the help of some very common examples. In the morning, children, when we wake up, we walk bare feet on the grassy lawns. Sometimes we join our hands to the sun. Sometimes when we go for evening walk, so we sit among trees for hours and hours. So these are several ways by which we connect ourselves with nature. So this line conveys the same meaning, that are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Means we get connected with beautiful nature. Now see the next few lines. Spite of despondence, of inhuman dearth, of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over-darkened ways made for our searching. In spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirit. See, children, in this stanza, you will be finding many words that show negativity and sorrow and sadness. Like spite of despondence means hopelessness, disappointments. Inhuman dearth of noble natures means lack of good virtues, lack of moral values. Gloomy days means sad days. Unhealthy and over darkened ways means evil ways applied by us in our lives. Made for our searching means we try to search out ways to come out of these sorrows and sufferings. Right? So here the poet wants to convey that we lack good virtues and values that makes our life sad. See, gloomy days, these scarcity of these virtues and values makes our life sad and sorrowful. But in spite of all these sorrows and sufferings, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirit. Some beautiful things are there around us that make us forget our sadness and our sorrows. Right? In spite of sense of hopelessness and gloom, we are able to find our happiness in beautiful objects of nature. And then the poet says that yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirit. Here, the expression dark spirit refers to the ill will and evil thoughts in our mind and soul due to lack of goodness. But the poet says that beauty in different forms and shapes drives away the sadness from our lives. So, in simple words, I would like to explain this stanza that the poet says that human beings suffer pain and loss of hope due to the lack of noble nature. The selfish and inhuman nature makes us sad, but still, beauty in different shades and shapes drives away the sadness from our lives, and we love our life and we live our life happily. Now, in the next lines, the poet presents a long list of beautiful things that we find around us. Look at the stanza. Such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon for simple sheep, and such are daffodils with the green world they live in, and clear rills that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season. The mid forest brake rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. The poet in these lines presents an array of beautiful things that include the sun, the moon, old and young trees giving shade to tired sheep, beautiful daffodils blooming in the green world. Green world means, see, nature's beauty, children, at its best can be seen in lush green forest and beautiful meadows and pastures. The green world refers to them only. So the daffodils blooming in the forest, clear rills means water streams with crystal clear water, with green plants on both sides, and then mid forest break means the ferns with musk roses here and there. All these beautiful things make our life worth living. I'll repeat the list of beautiful things again: the sun, the moon, old and young trees giving shade to tired sheep, daffodil flowers blooming in the forest, water streams with crystal clear water, and mid forest break ferns with musk roses here and there. These are all beautiful things. Look at this sentence there, that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season. See, children, water streams flow through bushes, green plants, and all. So, these green plants keep the water of the stream cool during summer season. And all these are things of beauty. Now, let's see the next lines. And such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. All lovely tales we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring onto us from the heavens brink. Here the poet counts one more beautiful thing. He says that such too is the grandeur of the doom. Grandeur, I told you the meaning in the beginning only. Grandeur means something grand, something magnificent, splendor. And doomsday means the last day of this universe. And the poet says that such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. Mighty dead here refers to those great warriors and our forefathers who glorified life with their great deeds and embraced death also most gracefully. And it is believed in the Christianity that on Doomsday, all our forefathers will be awarded for the noble deeds and for the bravery they showed in their life. And that is why the poet associates grandeur with the mighty dead. And all lovely tales we have heard or read, lovely stories that we have heard or read about our ancestors, it's also a thing of beauty. Now, see the last two lines here, the poet presents a beautiful image. He says, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring onto us from the heavens brink. Here, the poet wants to say that beauty in all respects is a perennial source of joy and motivation, a permanent source of happiness. And that is why the poet compares these beautiful things with nectar. Nectar is a drink, children, it's a God's drink that makes them immortal, right? One who takes nectar, it is said that person never dies, right? So the poet is comparing these beautiful things with nectar, and there is no comparative word used, so this is a good example of metaphor. And also the poet presents a beautiful image here when he says that pouring onto us from heaven's brink. He wants to say that beauty is the greatest gift of God to men, and it has been showered upon us from the heaven above. And this beauty is eternal, everlasting, and perennial source of joy and happiness. So that's all about the explanation of the poem. Then once again we'll go back to the previous stanzas and let us see what are the poetic devices used there. Look at this stanza, children, where the poet talks about noble natures. This is an example of alliteration. Then see gloomy days. Gloomy days is an example of transferred epithet. Actually, we become sad. But this gloomy, this sadness, this adjective has been shifted to days. So this is an example of transferred epithet. And then when we just see the last stanza, an endless fountain of immortal drink, this is an example of a metaphor here. Now here is a message for you children about this poem. My message is always treasure beautiful things in your memory, to love life even amidst despondency. Thank you.